All right, let's go ahead and get started with our lesson today. Before we get started in our notebooks, I wanted to look over at the essential questions. Yesterday, second period went ahead and they did add some information that I didn't think about, which I thought was kind of cool. So what they added was that when you're using visuals, dealing with percents, that you need to make sure on your tape diagram that you make them equally divided and be neat with it. So I have a question. Yesterday we talked about double number lines, right? So what did you learn dealing with percents that you also have to do on a double number line that's kind of similar to your tape diagram information? Like what, can we just have random numbers on our double number lines? Like, think about when we were doing ratios, we used double number lines to represent what type of ratios? What type of ratios did we essentially figure out when we were using our double number lines? Mikael? Can't hear you, what you saying? Yeah, nothing, what'd you say? Yes, equivalent ratios. So, and with equivalent ratios, we were increasing by the same thing every time, right? So, well, do you think that's going to be the same when we deal with our percents today on our double number lines? Yesterday, when we were using our double number lines, did we increase? We used double number lines yesterday, right? Or am I like getting too many classes mixed up? Yeah. So, like when we were doing our double number line yesterday on this one. What was our increase by? Ronnie? 25, right? And I mean, technically, we can take this a step further and write a 1, right? So for our first set, it's 1. Then we multiply 25 cents times 2, get 50. Multiply 25% times 2, get 50. So it's exactly like equivalent ratios in a way, right? Okay? All right, so hopefully, by the end of today, if you guys want to add anything else about how do we use ratios to help us find percents, hopefully we'll be able to do that today. If not, definitely tomorrow, before we start our lesson. All right, your warm-up today. So it says fundraising goals. So I am actually going to allow you to do this with your group members. Okay, so you are going to get 3 minutes. Put your pencils down so I know that you're actually listening. So it says each of 3 friends, Lynn, Jada, and Andre, had the goal of raising $40. How much money did each person raise? Be prepared to explain. So number one says Lynn raised 100% of her goal. Number 2 says Jada raised 50% of her goal, and number 3 says Andre raised 150% of his goal. All right, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes. If we need a little bit more time, I'll give you a little bit more time. Go.
20.
Yeah. How you got those numbers.
So like I got 40 from like that's the entire percentage of the goal. 50 is like after the 40 and then 20 is half of the goal, and Jada raised 50%, which is like half of 40 and 20. So that's $20, and 150 as I'm gonna show you plus I'm gonna show you just plus 40 because like half and 40 is 1 square. I show you what I'm doing.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about our answers for, excuse me, each one of these. All right, so what did you get for number one? Lynn raised 100% of her goal. Where'd you get? Mikael? You should be nowhere talking. All right, and why did you guys come up with $40?
Because if they all want to play $40,
So 100% of the goal would be to raise $40, and she raised 100%. So essentially $40 equals 100%. Okay? All right, what about Jada? Jada raised 50% of her goal. So what do we do here? Ronnie?
$20.
And how did you get that?
Since it was 50%, I just took the 40 and divided it by 2.
Okay, so $40 divided by 2 gives me $20. And why did you divide it by 2?
Because it was half of the 100.
Right, because it's half of 100, right? All right, so number 3, it says Andre raised 150% of his goal. All right, what do we get here? All right, Levi, 60? Okay, and how did you figure that out?
Because 100% of the goal is 40, plus half of it is what I
I think this is what you said? 40 plus 20 is 60, yes. All right, how many of you guys use similar strategies as the ones that were shared? All right, did anybody come up with a different strategy for any of these? What'd you come up with, Jonathan?
150, I broke it apart into 150, and I know 100% is 40 and 50% is 20. So I just added it.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the actual part of the lesson. All right, so this one we're gonna do together, and then the next one you guys are gonna do as a group. Okay, so number 11.2, 3-day biking trip, we're doing together. All right, so it says Elena biked 8 miles on Saturday. Use the double number line to answer the questions. Be prepared to explain your reasoning. All right, so 8 miles on Saturday. What does 8 miles represent? But we're not looking at this. We're just looking at how are we going to fill out our double number line. So 8 miles on Saturday. What does that represent? Think about percentages. Ronnie?
Wouldn't that equal 100%?
Yes, that is how far she went on Saturday, right? That is her total. It tells us that she went 8 miles on Saturday. So find your 100% over here, and above it, I want you to write an 8. Does everybody understand why? Is there anybody who does not understand? Perfect. All right, so now, remember how I said, they talked about the tape diagram has to be equally divided? Well, our double number line does too. So if 100% is 8, how do we figure out the rest of the measurements for our tick marks on the top? What do we need to do? Mikael, what do you think?
divided by 4.
Divided by 5?
4.
4? Why 4?
Because the 4 is
I can't hear anything you're saying. You're killing me today. I don't know what you're saying. You are right, we do have to divide. So I'm gonna we're gonna take 2 skills and we're gonna put them together right now. If I wanted to do 8 miles or 8 miles to 100%, well, it kind of helps us out a little bit, and it gives us all these on here, right? So we want to find technically that unit rate percent, that was really a thing. It's not really a thing, but we're finding the smallest percent, which is 25. So where do I put my 25%? Am I going to put it on the top across from the 8 miles, or am I going to put it on the bottom across from the 25 mile, or 100%, sorry, on the bottom. And then you just treat this as unit rate in a way. How do I go from 100 to 25? What do I have to do? Ronnie. So I gotta divide this by 4, which means if I divide the bottom by 4, what must I do to the top? Gotta divide it by 4 as well. 8 divided by 4 gives me how many miles? 2 miles. Alright, so we know that 25% of her ride on Saturday was 2 miles. So now, this is, put a little 1 right here. And Elise, I just saw you. What were you doing with your number line?
Counting by 2.
Right, you're counting by 2s at this point because technically, if we did 2 times 2, we get what? 4. If we do 25% times 2, we get what? Not 6. 25% times 2 is what? 50. Yeah. So we know that we are increasing by 2s on the top. So go ahead, if you haven't already, please fill out the rest of your top numbers. So do you see how ratios helps us find different types of percents? Okay? Now, this is a lot easier when you're using a double number line. You're not always going to use a double number line, but this is just a visual. It's one strategy. Does that mean you have to use it? No, you do not have to use it. All right, so number 1, down here on the bottom says, what is 100% of her Saturday distance? We already talked about that, but let's go ahead and circle that 100% so we know. So how far did she go on Saturday total? 8 miles. Okay, slide over to number 2. I'm going to leave the double number line up here, but you guys are at the top of the right side. It says on Sunday she biked 75% of her Saturday distance. How far was that? So what do we need to look at, Gemma?
The 75%, that's 6 miles.
Yes, so we're looking at our 75%, and if we did our double number line correctly, that is going to give us 6 miles. So that is the answer for number 2, so 6 miles. All right, and then number 3 says on Monday she biked 125% of her Saturday distance. How far was that? Kyra? 10. So again, we're over here. We identify 125% and we get 10. Hold on. Just open it up. All right. So in your groups today, you are going to be, like I said, completing number 1, number 2, and number 3. Now, think about how we did this. This we were given the total of 100%, right? But we went through and we found the equal parts of this. Elisa was able to look and say, okay, well, I know that I'm increasing by 2. So over on questions number 1 and 2, you are not given the total. You are giving the starting point. So just remember that. Your total is what you're going to be determining. But they do give you a starting point on both of your number lines over here. You are working in your groups to solve number 1, number 2, and number 3. I'm going to give you 7 minutes. If you have questions or you get stuck, please ask for help. What do we need to remember when we're using double number lines? What do they have to have? Delilah.
Parts or amount.
Right, so they have to be equal. You can't go 20 and then 21 and then 87 and then 62. Your increments have to be equal. All right, go ahead. How we doing? what is your next increment on the bottom? So your increment.
11 times 7 is 60.
So, but you're increasing by what? By 20. And then what are you increasing by on top? How are we doing? What are we increasing by? And what are we increasing by? Why are you using a colored pencil? Okay, so what do you need to do if you can't find a pencil? Right. Well, I can't look at it. Do you guys know like how you're increasing and whatnot? On the bottom? And then what about on the top? Yes. You guys know how you're increasing on the bottom? Okay, well that's wrong. I mean, it's right, but they have to have increments. Yes. So show me how you're growing on your bottom of your line. Does that make sense? Yes. I would hope that's right.
And 30, oh, but that's it, because 100 divided by 30 is 3.9.
Right, how you guys
So let's just do that. Strategy.
So are you gonna do by 20?
What is this strategy after? Or we could do
You can't cut it off because you gotta get to 100, right? You can't do 30, 60, 90, 100. So you gotta figure out a way. Okay, so here's my question. If you're going up by 30,
9 times 3.
100. But you have to have 100. You have to figure out their whole body weight, right? Right, so what's another one? So 30's not gonna work, 15's not gonna work. What's a really easy one? Yeah, you're going by 20, 45, 40, 30. You said big brain? Okay, so the top one go by 10. Yeah, it's easier to go, and you can go by 10. Because you're
29.90 seconds.
that is your unit,
29.90.
but
I multiply 9 by 3.33 because it's 30 times 3.33, which is
no, they have the, that's my fault. So this number line, the bottom of the top line is increasing the same, but it's got it increasing by 9 across the top, and then across the top. You can't jump around. It's all about. Alright guys, question. How many of you are stuck on number 2? You're like, I'm not really sure what I should do. Alright, so let's have a quick conversation. So everyone push pencils down. Zoe, you feeling okay, babe? Do you need to go to the nurse? Hold on a second. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about your starting point number. What percentage did they give you for the starting point of number 2? Troy.
They gave us 30% with 9 hours.
So they gave us 30%. Hold on one second, I can't do two things at once. Alright, take it back. They gave us 30% for our starting point, correct? So we have to, the question is asking you what is the total weight, right? That's essentially what the question is asking. The total weight is going to be what percent? Delilah? 100%, right? So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I can just go up by 30s. That would make the most sense. 30, 60, 90, 100. Can we do that?
No.
So raise your hand and tell me, why can we not do that? What is our rule that we have to use when we're using double number lines? Emma,
We cannot cut off the numbers.
what do you mean we can't cut off the numbers?
Like you can't do like how you did the 30s, how from 90 to 100, it would be 120 and 100.
Right, so you can't just, you gotta keep your increments the same. So I had a good conversation with Camden's table, they're like, well, what about 20s? And we talked about, well, is 20 gonna give you an equal increment to 30? What'd you guys say? No. Then you said 15, right? Alright, and Kyra, what was wrong with 15? What did it not give us? 100, it got us really close. We got to what, 95? Got to 95, but it still didn't give us 100. So what is, I mean, you can do lots of things, but what's going to be the easiest and keep it the neatest? Levi? Tens. So your bottom row should increase by tens, which means you have to figure out if it's 9 pounds for 30%, we're going to 10%, right? So then essentially you gotta think, what do I divide by here? Which I'm going to divide by there. Does that make sense? All right, so go ahead, use this. I'm gonna give you an extra, let's say, 3 minutes because you have to finish number 2 and answer number 3. Okay, so I'll give you 3 more minutes.
So let me do 18, 21, 24, 25.
I feel like everybody got the first number one. So we're increasing by 20% on the bottom. What are we increasing by the top? So raise your hand and help me fill out my top. Christiana. Okay, so what comes next? Yep. 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 Okay. So then the question is, what will be the adult weight of the puppy? So you should tell me 45 pounds. That should be your answer. Alright, so number 2, Andre also has a puppy that weighs 9 pounds. The vet says the puppy is now at about 30% of its adult weight. What will the weight of the of Andre's puppy be? So again, we're increasing by 10 on the bottom. Excuse me. So help me fill out my top tick marks. Delilah.
3,
Yep.
6,
Yep.
then after that it'll be 12,
Yes.
and 15,
Yep.
18,
Yep.
21,
Yep.
24,
Yep.
27,
I'm sorry. I'm hearing other things that are confusing me. Sorry. 24, 27,
and then
30? Yes. And then again, you circle that last one at 100%. So the weight of Andre's dog should be 30 pounds. Alright, so number 3, it says, what is the same about Jada and Andre's puppies? So what's the same about them? Ronnie?
they each were 9 pounds to begin with.
Okay, what's different about them?
They have a different weight. One's 30, the other's 45.
Okay, perfect. Now, before you go any further, I do want to briefly let you know your cool down today is a double number line. It gives you the total in the question, and you have to figure out your increments on your double number lines. So keep your notes out if you need to help you. All right, there's really only one question. It's just that double number line. So please be as neat as possible because I'm not going to use my numbers all over the place to find your answer. Circle your final answer when you're done. Does that make sense? All right, go ahead, glue this into your notebook. When you are finished, when you cool down, please turn it into the first period bend. And then you're right back to working on any assignment that you possibly can work on to get turned in for any class, Lexia, math. Why are y'all talking? Are you staying here or are you going back to bed? Guys, there's entirely too much conversation. The only person you should be talking to is me, so if you have a question, please raise your hand. Once you're done, you may also move around the room if you would like.